All right, thanks. So it's 1:02. I'm calling the December 16th, 2024 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. Can we call the roll, please?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Vanderwerf,
Here.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Here.
Mr. Stoner.
Here.
Mr. Hancock.
Here.
And Mr. Henningsen.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The public may access and participate in the meeting electronically. Instructions for doing so are posted on the Albemarle County website at the Albemarle County calendar. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Both is provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Staff will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. If applicants in the meeting room have team members attending virtually who will need to present, please make that known when you come to the podium. Everyone who is participating virtually, please mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. We'll move on to disclosures. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
No.
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 No. Me either. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review?
Good afternoon. My name's Neil Williamson. I serve as president of the Free Enterprise Forum, a privately funded public policy organization focused on Central Virginia's local governments. Your last meeting considered two applications that demonstrated the need for re-examining ARB operations or guidelines. First applicant, the Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Jail, is planning a 16-foot razor fence directly adjacent to the Avon entrance corridor and refused to provide this board with the structural plans for the interiors of the buildings. The staff report was clear in its analysis, highlighting lack of windows, landscaping, and a security fence of chain link and razor wire that's shown along the building addition. The second applicant challenged the ARB to widen their architectural lens and consider building techniques that would more economically allow the highest and best use of property, limited amount of property, industrially zoned in the entrance corridor. To be clear, the Free Enterprise Forum has no opinion on either of these applications specifically, but the juxtaposition of the two of them created policy questions that got us here and how you interpret the guidelines. I really appreciated the conversation last meeting and the thoughtful manner in which you were considering the applications. As is often the case, we find ourselves asking, why are you regulating at all? I'm reminded of the architectural concept, form ever follows function. Sullivan intended form follows function to signify the idea of the design of a building should be primarily based on intended function or purpose. He thought the aesthetic qualities should emerge naturally from the functional requirements as opposed to being purely for the sake of decoration. Over the years, many, including Frank Lloyd Wright, have pushed back on this order of importance. Considering our 20 years of following the ARB, we are struck with a series of questions. If the ARB is in charge of exterior appearance, should the function of the interior of the building be any part of the discussion? Factoring in the economic importance of industrial industries and the inherent discord between the current ARB guidelines and existing industrial uses, should the ARB or the Board of Supervisors consider reducing the regulatory scope and eliminate industrially zoned property? If the jail is approved because of its unique use demands and other private entities are denied, is that not a design double standard? With the absence of significant changes to the ARB guidelines, the Free Enterprise Forum is curious what authority the ARB will approve the jail proposal without setting precedent for any commercial user to apply the same standard. We find the ARB to be between a jailhouse rock and a hard place. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public on Zoom or anything?
I don't have anybody.
All right. In that case, we do not have any consent agenda items. We do not have any work sessions, so we'll move to our one and only regular review item, which is ARB 2024-68, Arbor Oaks Towns Initial Site Plan. Chris?
Good afternoon, everybody. The application being reviewed today is initial site plan to construct 14 townhomes in 2 blocks in addition to associated site improvements. Site is located along Hydraulic Road, northeast of Georgetown and Hydraulic Road intersection. ARB has not reviewed any previous proposals for the site, but design staff provided comments on potential entrance corridor impacts during the rezoning review. Architectural drawings were not submitted with the initial, but the site plan shows the side of the townhouse blocks oriented towards the entrance corridor. Due to the parcel size, the townhouses would be located close to the frontage, meaning all elevations except the east elevation, which faces away from Hydraulic Road, would have visibility. Architectural designs that eliminate blank facades while incorporating appropriate form, scales, and details will be necessary to create buildings that provide a front to the entrance corridor. The site plan shows trees to remain along the northern perimeter of the site and propose ornamentals, not the required large shade trees along the frontage. Existing overhead line and proposed 10-foot electrical easement limits the available planting area, but the guidelines stipulate reservation of planting area along the frontage, clear of utilities and easements. Staff recommends the layout of the townhomes be revised to provide clear planting area along the frontage that accommodate the required large shade trees free of utility and easement conflicts. Because of the frontage planting area issues detailed in staff report, we're not recommend approval of the initial site plan at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris. I guess we'll start with Dave. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Tara?
No, thank you very much.
Frank Stoner?
No, thanks.
Frank Hancock?
No, I don't have any questions.
Chris, I'm really sorry. I don't have any questions either. So if the applicant is here and has a presentation.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Margaret. I'm Couture Rowell. I'm here representing the applicant. Just pull up the site plan again. So to that end, there are multiple conflicts along the frontage. Planning department wants the current sidewalk moved back with a planting strip and then a 5-foot sidewalk, which then increases the right-of-way easement further into the property. As he pointed out, the overhead lines are there. And the trees that are shown there also run into some utility storm sewer issues we're trying to deal with and keep that in the overhead power line so that the storm sewer and everything does not have impact. In addition to that, we're preserving all the other trees that are to the left, which are the only good mature trees on the site. And yes, we will submit architectural plans to show the front facades and the sides as they approach so that it has a good appearance. The most important thing I realized by being on that side is that because it sits across from the parking lot of the high school, you would think that the front lots would be less desirable because they're on the road. Well, in fact, they have tremendous mountain views off in the distance from those front lots. I did submit, I think at one point, some concepts of some architectural pictures, which I'm having the draftsman create an image of, so it'll be attractive. Not your traditional just block vinyl townhouses. I'd like to do a good quality product there. Additionally, then, of course, there's VDOT conflict because you have to have sight distance in both directions, a good distance for hydraulic, some 400 feet in each direction. So again, that limits any low shrubs that are within that side easement, which I will submit with the planting plan to show what we can impact, where we can plant and where we cannot. Currently, I know, I'm sure you've all been by that section of hydraulic road and there are major oak trees that overhang. And because I have to move the sidewalk back 5 feet, I have to remove all those big old oaks along the frontage of the tree. Unfortunately. If, there would be any way to push back on that, I mean, first off, the project to the right is an existing apartment complex with major oak trees in its front. That sidewalk is not moving back. And to our north is retaining walls, so forth from the commercial development. And that sidewalk's not being moved back by anybody through growth and development. So why have this one piece of sidewalk jerk around and remove the nice mature oaks? So if anything, some recommendation or contact with planning to, and I'll be happy to present pictures and see, but it seems like a nonsensical move and remove of several major, pretty long-standing oak trees that are there now. That because they're trunks and not short trees, VDOT will allow. Any questions?
All right, thanks. Let's see, we'll start with Frank Stoner.
Do we have a current condition site plan that we could look at that would show the oak trees that you're referencing?
I don't know if you have one or not.
Or could we look at that aerial again? Maybe that'll help.
This
Yeah, that
thing
doesn't show it.
conditions doesn't have it, but on one second.
That shows how the sidewalk is along the frontage currently.
That sidewalk exists today?
So, and here was a thought I had put forth to planning, and that is, I'm more than happy to, there you go. Dedicate. It's those, all those trees along that frontage there. Now the entrance, of course, has to line up and with the intersection across the street. There's the big oaks to the north, to the far left, see those hanging there. That frontage there will pretty much be cleared because of site distance. So what I had suggested to planning is that I'm more than happy to dedicate that frontage. And that if and when hydraulic road is ever frontage improvements like further east, then they would have the dedicated frontage and they'd be, have conditions which they could then widen that whole stretch. But to have us do it when the likelihood of the rest of north and south are never to be touched seems foolish. So just a thought and how it could be approached possibly and what thoughts you may have to maintain some of the old oaks.
Thanks. That's,
All
was
right.
my only question.
Thanks. Dade?
Sure, thank you for your presentation. I believe staff in their report and comments suggested finding a way to pull the development, or at least the, I guess, well, the right-hand wing further from the entrance corridor to make space. Have you given any consideration to how and whether that could be accommodated?
Move my entrance.
No, not the entrance, but the facade, I guess, on the bank of townhouses to the right, the one that is, I think, restricting the opportunity to plant the street trees.
Storm sewer. Everything flows to the front. I have to have storm sewer drains there from the parking lot. I have pervious pavers to reduce runoff. But we've got to catch stormwater and do that. Engineering has already made that point plain clear about.
Right.
That's dealt with.
I mean, would it be feasible for that facade to be parallel with the lot one, or coplanar rather with the lot one facade?
So to that end, I doubt the trees that are shown on this plan in front of lot one, they'd have to be small anyway and have to be outside of the sight distance. I did move the sewer to the internal part of the parking lot so that there's nothing else running across there to inhibit. And other than the overhead power line easement, that's my biggest conflict of how to deal with.
I
Even
see.
if I bury it, I still can't plant it.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have an exhibit available that shows all the conflicts that you're referencing, including the sight lines and others? It may help us understand the challenges.
Margaret, if you'll just forward all that, and I'll be happy to provide the various requests and plans and views
Thank you. No questions. Further
along with the
questions.
architecturals for the next review.
Right. Frank Hancock?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. One question, would VDOT allow any plantings and like if it's this configuration between the sidewalk and the curb? Or is it a site distance issue
Yeah.
or they're not gonna allow any
Nothing
tree
between.
plantings
Even if I move the sidewalk back, have a planting strip, I still can't plant anything there.
because of the clear zone, like
Site
the VDOT
distance, yeah.
and site distance? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some 440 feet because it's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, so you know how that plays.
And just so I understand, if the sidewalk were allowed to be right up against the curb
As it is.
as it is, the mature existing oak trees would be able to be saved, or
Sure,
you
because
could work around them.
VDOT will let you see past a major oak. Same thing if you go back to that view and you can see to the south. See those large trees in the front? VDOT has, obviously not required me to take those down because they're large trunks and you can see by them, you can see cars coming and going. And that frontage there is clear, and then there's the good picture of the oaks where you were. Right there along that frontage. Again, as long as I limit them up and everything's at, above head high, vehicle sight distance view, VDOT will grant a waiver. Clean out the small stuff, but maintain the nice oaks.
Hey, could we look at the site plan one more time? Sorry. That existing asphalt driveway, I guess, is that to the south of your property or?
Yeah, right there.
east?
Yeah, that goes to a house in the back.
That's off of your property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Tara?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right, thanks. Guess I have just one question that's I don't like to get into speculative stuff like this, but it seems like you've got 8 townhomes on one side and 5 on the other side. Inside where you have 8, there's less room in the front. Is there any practical reason why you couldn't put one of those on the other side?
Open space requirements.
Okay,
So actually the back left is a duplex one over another unit in order to maintain a sufficient open space area and provide access to the little picnic area and open space.
all right, thanks.
Yep.
So are there any members of the public that want to make a comment?
Don't have anyone online.
All right, thank you. So in that case, the ARB will now go into discussion. I guess we'll start with Tara. Do you have any comments?
Thank you.
Yes, I think I appreciate the applicant providing a little bit of a sense of what the things driving the current site plan is. It'd be great to see a little bit more so we can just understand what the spatial constraints are. I think as far as future submissions, I think that especially given the the impacts to the planting, like I agree that adjusting the sidewalk distance seems to really make preserving some of the existing trees difficult, and that those do provide both screening and connection to what's happening on either side of the site. I think as far as the architecture goes, in townhome developments, we've also often seen that the end facades of, I guess, what'll be lots 1 and 13 that are directly facing the entrance corridor are often like kind of neglected. But especially because the planting is not sufficient on that side with the stick of 8 townhomes, I think it'll be important that those are treated as front facades. But I appreciate the applicant coming forward with this, and interested to see future submissions. Thank you.
Thanks. Frank Hancock.
Sure. Yeah, this is a tough site. Lots of constraints, but I appreciate the applicant's honesty kind of with the, yes, multiple hurdles that we are facing. I would be interested to see, where those existing oak trees are, if it's more than one, what the canopy looks like. Because we're thinking about the entrance corridor and what the impact is on the entrance corridor, and I bet everybody that drives down Hydraulic knows these trees pretty well. It's like shocked when you see that limb hanging out over into the middle lane. But that definitely has a huge impact on the corridor, and I think if presented with this pretty wide entrance drive, the sides of 2 townhomes, and I understand, there are things you can do to make it look like a front facade, but just given that length, I think it'll read as a side. And then you're gonna look up into a parking lot. I would be just interested to see if those trees could be saved, because I think they're gonna mitigate some of that, and I think that's a compelling case. And would maybe, maybe lessen the impact of kind of the lot 13. I think that's one of the big issues, is how close that is and how there's no room to really plant anything to mitigate that. It's unfortunate you're trying to, like, everything happens at that corner with the stormwater, so and the overhead power, it's all kind of coming through right there, and your frontage and your planting area is just really reduced. So yeah, I agree with Tara. I'm just interested to see what the architecture looks like, and then if there's any way to, work with those existing trees. I think that would help things, but I don't know if I'm offering you much, but
That's all right.
thank you.
Thanks. Dade?
Sure. So we also appreciate the applicant's presentation and highlighting some of the challenges. I think while I'm sensitive to them and, including the open space requirements, I do think, the guidelines are an overlay and in addition to the other requirements in the area. And I think the landscape requirements of them are one of the most significant elements in terms of creating unity and regular character for the county. And so while I do appreciate the applicant highlighting the existing trees, and Frank clearly knows that one well. I've driven under it quite many times myself. I think, as you requested, Frank, it would be helpful to see a survey of those trees and maybe some assessment of their health. I initially am skeptical about relying on them for the long-term character and quality of the development and its contribution to the corridor. You know, I think fundamentally, you know, and I appreciate your question, Chris, about whether there's available space to still get the same number of units that are proposed while still meeting the corridor guidelines. And would just ask, you know, is there a way, whether it's the townhouse dimensions, the lot dimensions, or others, to ultimately satisfy all the requirements that are applicable here, those for the entrance corridor and the plantings? And I appreciate the applicant highlighting that they are developing and intend to present facades for the ends that really address the entrance corridor, and look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Frank?
Yeah, I would concur with what everybody else has said. I think you've got a challenging situation on the frontage. I'm not quite sure why VDOT is determined to make you put a grass strip when there isn't one anywhere else, at least that section of hydraulic. You might consider appealing that. It doesn't change the reality, which is you can't really plant much, whether the sidewalk there or 5 feet back. I think the solution is most likely in the architecture that you present for those the ends of lot 1 and lot 13. If there was a way to shift, as Chris indicated, shift one of those units that's on the right side to the left side and still keep your open space, which in theory seems like it should be possible, but maybe not. That would take a lot of pressure off, because I think lot 13 is the primary concern. There's enough space next to lot 1 that you can get some smaller trees and evergreens and just some buffer. So yeah, I look forward to next review.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I don't have much to add. I do interested to see what the architecture ends up looking like, and I would agree that moving that sidewalk seems like like not a good idea, but so hopefully that is something that you could appeal. But I guess we could take a look at the recommended motion.
Chris, I was wondering, is there, this is just throwing things out there, but the applicant, I noticed that there's the atypical unit is number 5, lot 5, the 1/1 unit. But you'd mentioned because of the open space requirements that it wouldn't be feasible to move townhomes from one stick to the other. But the ones on the right couldn't move over. Is there a possibility of moving lots 12 and 13 over to the left-hand side and moving lot 5 over to the right-hand side? Because it looks like lot 5 is slightly narrower from left to right than 2 townhomes would be. So that would let you keep the unit count, but have the right-hand side of stick of townhomes have a little bit more space between the end of that building and the front of the. So you basically, because all the weird stuff is happening in that front corner, right, around lots 12 and 13. So if you took the weird unit and put it in that weird spot, you could kind of work both of those to try to open up more space on the face of the entrance corridor, right? That lot 5 could be the thing that's facing everybody. Lot 5 can be different than the rest of the townhomes.
Right, it's a double stacked unit
Yeah,
because
so-
it's affordable, and lot 6 is also an affordable unit because there's 3 affordables on this parcel.
2/2 or 1/1?
What's that?
2/2 or 1/1?
That's a 1/1, and that's a narrower 16-foot duplex, single. What you see there to the right behind 12 and 13 actually is a big in-ground poured concrete basin to collect all the stormwater that I came up with in order to create a patio behind the units and also store solve my stormwater problem. We can put some plantings around that because that is all private, but
I guess just in the interest
It
of
is an
thinking
interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of what you could do, if you could switch where the weird thing is happening and just push it all into that one corner, it'd give you, or your
can't affect any more area on the
on the left-hand
north
side.
side at all.
But you have that fire, is that hatched area, the fire truck turning radius or turning area? Is
Correct.
there a way that you could somehow integrate that into the open space to make
No.
it count as a,
Not
like if you
budget,
used,
no.
you used a paver or something, you pushed it into the landscape site, so you could,
They won't let me. It has to be undisturbed.
Basketball court.
Yeah, they're planning, so many requirements for different things. It's crazy.
So the open space you pick up on the right side couldn't be applied? 'Cause
Can't be
you
applied
would,
to it because it's not connected.
but you're counting it as an open space B already, right? You already have open space B
Yeah.
in the bottom right? So if you,
Right.
in theory,
That area is literally at a minimum.
but the open
you
space,
would increase that.
if you switched lot 5 and lots 12 and 13, then open space B would get bigger.
That's right.
I'm making 12 and 13 one over one.
A 1/1 and making, and moving those 2 townhomes, so you'd have a stick of 6 townhomes on the left. You'd have a 1/1 in the corner, and then you'd have a series of 5 townhomes backing up it. And then that 1/1, you have freedom in the floor plan to kind of adjust it to meet the site constraints. And you could provide a wider planting area that would help us get happy. And you would hopefully even up the open space between open space A and open space B to meet your open space requirements.
So I could look at making 6 and 7 a 1/1 and reducing the area footprint, but again, that's not attributable to the open space. But that would allow me to slide lot 13 back uphill,
Yeah, something like that. I
create
don't
some
know.
more frontage.
It's just a stray thought, but it might help you address some of the constraints and get us the planting area and keep your open space in the right spot.
Plus the architecture on lot 5 is gonna be funky anyway, right? It's different than the other ones.
No, it's gonna be interesting look and shape. I mean, offsets and corners,
It's more
and
custom.
some deck area back there, and that I'll put some patio over deck, deck over patio for the 2 units. There'll be patios behind all the units, and again, on lot 1 and lot 13, as I mentioned, I'm gonna create a facade where there's some pretty picture windows and maybe even an outdoor corner terrace so that people can go out and sit on, enjoy the view and appreciate that setting. I was concerned about road noise, but the view's worth it. Just even from ground level, it's worth it. So time you get to that second floor, it'll be attractive.
All right.
So
Well,
I'm gonna try and make them a little, not quite modern looking, but certainly not classic traditional, like across the street. My entrance has to be where it is, of course, because that lines up with, Mickey, whatever that is over there.
all right.
Be as
Well,
creative as I can.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if we can take a look at the recommended motion.
Yeah, the recommended overall motion is to forward the recommendations in the staff report to the agent for the site review committee. The first of those 4 bulleted items is regarding the initial site plan. Staff is not recommending approval of the initial plan at this time. I've added and read the two items that, that you've been discussing. Provide a plan that shows all features that result in landscape conflicts and consider switching lot 5 for lots 12 and 13 or other layout changes to increase planting area along the entrance corridor.
Just to clarify, it's VDOT that's requiring the sidewalk be moved and not any county authority. Is that correct? Or
That's my impression, but I could double check that.
so like if we made note that not moving the sidewalk would be a good idea, that doesn't really affect anything.
It wouldn't hurt to record your concern.
So
One comment to that is, that's not a
Don't
VDOT
talk
issue,
till you get
that's
to the, you have to
plan-
get, I
a
can't. record
planning
you. There you go.
department issue. VDOT doesn't care one way or another. Planning department just
Okay.
wants the right of way and the sidewalk to match what's further down Hydraulic Road in front of Turtle Creek and so on, where they put a planting strip and then a new sidewalk. So that's planning department thinking about future growth and road widening or so forth. VDOT doesn't care one way or another.
It's my understanding that all the reviewers' comments on this, in this round of review are due maybe later this week. And so the lead planner will be coordinating all those comments, including the ARB's recommendations, so we can continue to have conversations with the planner on that.
I'd maybe add an item like consider allowing sidewalk to be, existing sidewalk to remain if that would facilitate preservation of existing trees.
I guess related to that, and maybe the first comment in red addresses it, or it's implied as locating or documenting the existing trees to remain.
Yeah.
Or the additional ones by the street, if indeed that last comment
Yeah,
becomes.
because a certain number of them are gonna be taken out just for the entranceway anyway.
Right.
Anybody have any additional?
With regard to 8 and 9, which sounds like even the best of circumstances would not be able to large shade trees along. I think is what I understood. Because of the power line.
I think it would probably be helpful to see the exhibit identified in A before striking 8 or 9.
Margaret, would you mind just scrolling up a little bit to see what the all items on this must be? Like we could revise this portion when we actually grant a certificate of appropriateness, is that for the final site plan submittal section?
So those are the recommendations for changes to the plan that would come in with the final site plan, and you'll have another
be
opportunity to review it. So if they're
Consider
not,
further at that time.
you know,
Yeah, it's a good point, Tara. Thank you.
right, well, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to forward the recommendations outlined in the staff report amended as follows. And forward them to the agent for the site review committee. Oh, and the modifications include to provide a plan that shows all existing trees along the frontage and all features that result in landscape conflicts. To consider switching lot 5 for lots 12 and 13 or any other land layout changes which would increase the planting area across the entrance corridor. And to consider allowing the existing sidewalk to remain if it facilitates preservation of existing frontage trees.
Thanks, I'll second that. We could put that to a vote.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. So we will move on to other business. Does anybody want to make a motion to adopt the?
Thank
Thank
you
you.
too.
Thanks a lot.
I'll move to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2024.
Thank you.
I'll
second.
Date, okay, sorry. Okay. Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
and Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Do any board members or staff have any other items?
Just to mention that your bylaws state that the first meeting of the year is your annual meeting. That's when we do all the re-adopt the bylaws and votes for chairperson and vice chairperson. Just making sure that the first meeting of the year will work for you to take care of that business.
Yeah.
I will not be here for that meeting. I don't know if that matters. So elected.
Elected in absentia.
Been thinking about that. If anybody wants a taste of the power and prestige of the chair, just now is the time to seize power and
You're inviting us to commit a coup?
yeah. Yes, but if not, I'll keep going. So I guess we had a little preview of this, but the next ARB meeting is scheduled for January 6th. Are there any other board members who will not be able to attend? All right, and for all of our like yearly business stuff, like, does everybody need to be here for that? Okay. All right, sounds good. So, in that case, this meeting is adjourned until our next meeting on Monday, January 6th, 2025. It is 1:45. Thanks a lot.